In this series, we've been talking about weaving code directly into web applications as a means of changing it for the better. In most of these cases, we've been talking about making physical changes to the structure of the page to make something nicer. But in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about not doing anything at all with the structure. Instead, we're going to be looking at what is basically at another level alongside the structure, which is the style. Style on its own can have beautiful consequences. It can help you to establish a brand. You may, for example, be able to recognize a car on the street just by its taillights at the stoplight. You know exactly what brand it is. That's a good example. There's something has a signature to it, which comes with the style. Another thing that comes with style is pure eye candy. Visual pleasure is part of style. So what may attract you to a product, for example, could be the way that it looks. But alongside of how something looks is what is it doing. So there's function, and there's always been this sort of struggle, especially since the end of the 18th century. The whole what came first, the chicken or the egg, or what comes first? Is it the function or is it the form? What should come first? So back in the late 18th century, there was an architect named Louis Sullivan, and he's the guy kind of responsible for the steel skyscraper. Well, you can imagine back in the day when those first came out. Now it's pretty routine. That was a shock, and people just didn't agree with it. The way things used to happen is that you would have some sort of object you needed, and you would add style after, and that style was kind of to make it pretty. But in his case, he came up with the famous quote, which was that, let's see what it was, style over, what is it again? Form ever follows function. Thank you. So the form should follow the function, meaning the shape of an object should relate to its purpose. Never heard of Louis Sullivan? Well, you might have heard of his assistant, who was another architect much later in life, and his name was Frank Lloyd Wright, who kind of went down the same route. So form should follow function, meaning the shape of, say, a building or an object should relate to its purpose. It shouldn't be standing on its own, kind of alienated. So let me show you what I mean by that. If we're doing something ourselves with this concept, we have form, and one of these bits of form here, it could be color, it could be shape, it could be a whole bunch of things. In the end, you put it together, you might be able to build a signature, or you may be able to provide to the consumer a visual pleasure. But back in the day, there's a nice barrier between these two sides. And in fact, one could argue that this type of barrier still exists, which is to say, these two sides don't relate to each other terribly. There's function and there's form, and the function is going to be the imperative actions on it. I need to make something easy. I need to solve a problem. I need to create something new for my client. But the form was kind of this stuff on the side that had to do with more abstract things. But if you're doing it right, at least according to somebody like Louis Sullivan, or then what you're going to want to do is bridge these two sides together. Well, as it turns out, sometimes there's a gap in the functionality, right? Sometimes there's something that's not quite there. In our case, we're talking about on a web application, some part of the function isn't being fulfilled. There's something missing there. And what we're trying to do here, in our case, is to use style or form to directly address that problem and to deliver on that function that you need. So what we're going to try to do today inside of userscript is nothing to do with the JavaScript side of it where we're changing the structure or the control flow. We're going to do it through style. We're going to find a way in through what's already there in the structure and deliver through style of functions. So we're going to be doing this right here, which is to the user script is hopefully, if we're doing it right, going to bridge the two sides together. So what you're showing and what you're actually doing are now connected better. In the real world, we see this all over the house. So, for example, recently I needed to find desperately a flashlight, and I opened my drawer in my kitchen, and I couldn't find it right away because it wasn't there. But had it been there, it should be very easy to find, and that's through style. So here's my flashlight. You can see that it's kind of different than other flashlights. Maybe you've seen metal ones, but in my case, it's this bright red color, which is great. So because it's this color, I'm able to find this very quickly. And usually when I need a flashlight, assuming I'm, just an average person sharing a couple of tranquil moments in his home, when I need the flashlight, it's for something rather important. I need it right away. If I were to open up my toolbox and it was cluttered, I could still find this, and that's because of the actual style of it through this red color. I could see it if it was still buried. I can get to it right away. Another aspect of the form here that's serving the function is you can notice this toggle switch. Well, not only does it have a unique shape, but what I find interesting is that you can actually see it from here standing out. So I can touch and feel it. And there's this ridge here. So this ridge is allowing me, if we were in the dark, let's say there was a blackout, well, I can't see anything, but I'm able to feel the button. Very similar to in your car. People were complaining about things going way too high tech and all of the buttons leaving the physical dashboard on the newer models and going into the all-in-one display entertainment center thing, and you'd find the right feature there. But people were complaining. For example, removing a volume dial from the radio. And now you got to go and find it on the display. Well, I'm not going to be able to do that while I'm driving, right? I'm going to be driving the car. I want to make an adjustment when a loud song comes on. Well, on the old days, we had more of the physical knob, and the physical knob is very tactile, or you're able to detect it's there without taking your eye off the road, which is a safety concern. So ironically, the traditional way was kind of a smart use of style, and maybe the newer way is a little bit of an oversight when it comes to style. So besides the good old flashlight we have looking around the house, I realized I have, say in my bathroom, a beauty kit. It's not really beauty. I mean, it should be working much better for me if that were the case. But I have what I call inside of it, and you've probably heard of them before, but it's a pair of manicure scissors. Well, this has a very unique style to it too. Forget about the finger holes and the color on there, but that's kind of nice. But that's an example of something that's purely for visual pleasure. It's not necessarily helping. However, what is helping is there are ridges here, little microscopic ridges, which maybe you could see, maybe you can't here, which is going to help with the grip a little bit. And it's very small, right? If I'm using this truly for manicure purposes, I'm going to be going up to my face with it. And if this were a long blade, I wouldn't be able to wield it. If I took a pair of normal scissors here, right? Good luck with that, folks. So something about the form of this is serving the function on the manicure scissors. So I'm able to get into a delicate space, and hopefully, God forbid I have nose hairs, I'm able to take it out without killing myself. I could easily cut myself if this had been a larger blade. So you're talking about the style, adding also on top of the small place I need to get to, I'm actually also able, because it's small, to do precise cutting. And on top of that, if I hold it sideways here, you can see that it's not perfectly flat. So this thing kind of has a little bit of a bend to it, and that also is helping me when it comes to fewer accidents. So by having this kind of curved up, for example, if I were to try to groom my eyebrows and I have it placed so that it's bowing outwards here, I'm able to cut, but guess what? I'm not stabbing accidentally my head here with the and cutting myself, the skin, because of this change to the style of the particular scissor. So that's really helpful. Conversely, you talk about a traditional pair like I was showing you. Here's a traditional pair of scissors. Well, they have here a different kind of finger hole than you saw in the other one, and you've probably seen these quite a bit. Probably early in your life you could have seen maybe seamstresses using these, but over time, since you were a kid, these kind of gotten larger, and now I can put multiple fingers in here. And so by doing this, I'm adding extra comfort for me, and I'm also, because I'm cutting, I'm going to be able to have a little bit more control, because I have grips on 3 fingers versus with 1 finger when this can still stay kind of wobbly. And then I can still use the small hole here with my finger in it to actually do the press down, and I can do the aiming thanks to the form here of this lower side of the scissors. This is what they call a bent-handled scissor. It's probably because you see that this is coming down here and it's bowing back this way, and the same on this end. So these are, if they're really bent, they'll be like this. So we're also getting the added comfort, like I said, maybe for extended work. Chances are I'm using these types of scissors for manicuring for less than a minute, but I might be doing scissor work with these types of scissors for maybe 20 minutes off and on. So I want a little bit of comfort here to be able to work, and that's afforded also to me through this form here that I'm getting. So the opposite might happen if you are just kind of explaining things. You notice here that neither of these examples are kind of telling you how to use it, but the style that's already there and viscerally appealing to you is serving this form. You're not getting an instruction manual to tell you how to use it. If you were having to get the instructions every time you use it, that would be what I would call a failure of the interface. You've probably seen this on certain web pages where there's a bunch of added text there and it's kind of like a crutch. Or maybe you have to go way into user docs to even understand how to use something, or you need to use Clippy or something. A lot of times when that happens, you have a deficiency in your user interface. There should be something about the style that can communicate, oh, this is how this works, rather than having a paragraph explain it to you. And what is that paragraph doing anywhere near what I'm regularly doing? So that's the case there. I'll give you a last example of style. This is a refrigerator thermometer. The nice things about the style is you notice the dial here is in red, and that's a good thing, because had it been, say, a color of white or off-white, you may not even be able to read it. And you can see, if I hold this backwards, viscerally, what do you see about temperatures here? Well, I kind of see that over here there's a little bit of a area that's blue. And this area here means, I'm guessing, that this is a desirable cold temperature. But on the other side, I have this area here, which is all red. And that kind of, to me, means it's an area of a danger zone. And I'm getting that viscerally just through the use of colors and how we're conditioned over time to associate particular colors with iconography and relating to temperature, maybe to around the kitchen. And as it turns out, inside of it there's extra information there. It says, hard to read, but it says over here danger, and it says here what does it say? Freezer. So this is telling me if I'm in this area here, I better be in the freezer, otherwise for fridge this is a little too cold. And it's telling me maybe this is a good temperature zone. And then it's saying at the end here, be careful, we're in trouble, you're in danger. And in fact, these are the temperatures above which you're in trouble. So, the health department's going to come and slap you with a code violation had you been a restaurant. So, a little bit of combination of telling and showing here. So, we're going to see a lot of ways that visceral style can serve that particular function. Let's go ahead and take a look at when we get back to the realm of a website. You'll find that style is everywhere on websites if they're doing what they're doing correctly. Part of it is going to be doing what we said here, which is to be building a brand. And part of it is kind of visual pleasure. But, it's everywhere on a web page. Let's go ahead and take a look at this electronic medical record software we've been showing in a lot of our presentations. And we're going to look at the patient's quick view. It's a page with all of their information, demographics, along with their insurance details and everything. And if we go ahead and take a look at it, we see that this page exemplifies style. It is literally everywhere here. We're going to verify some of this through a tool inside of Google Chrome, which we use, called the development tools, dev tools, and we can inspect individual items. So I can open that, or you can open that anytime by right-clicking anywhere on the page and going down to inspect. And when you do that, you have this pop up out of the screen. You don't have to enable anything crazy that you're a developer to see this. On the left, you have what we call the structure. This is basically the structure of the page. And on the right, you have instead the style. This is how style is implemented through a particular syntax. Well, if I go over to this tab called Computed, I can see the computed values for whatever I point to over here. So if we look, you and I together, we can see, well, this has a particular type of font. Let's take a look at that. I can right-click or click with my pointer here, and this has a particular type of font. And I'm able to, hopefully, if I'm down here, find the font. Let's see. Where am I? All right. So here's the font family. It's called Facet Regular. And it's kind of hard to see when I have it cropped too much, so I got to make a choice here. But if I go up to this other bit here in the header and look at the font family here, it's different. Can't you see that these are kind of not the same font? At least I can to my eye. And sure enough, it's called Source Sans Pro. So these are different fonts here. And then on top of that, I've got, clearly this is a regular weight to the text. And then here it's in bold. And I can see that by going here, and I can see font weight. Well, that is higher than what I would find, say, over here. The font weight on here is just 400. What else can I see? I see that this here, the status is in red, and that's also style. So something's unverified. It's a nice thing to do to decorate it somehow. And they do that through this class called alert. Well, there is a color on it that's different. So instead of the regular text color, I have red. And instead of, say, over here where I have black text, here at the top, I have text that's a different color. This text color is a white. So what else can we see here? We have a different background color here. If I look here, this is a different background color. This is a background color that's blue. And everywhere else, it's kind of a white color, right? So that's different as well. What else can we see here? Is there anything else that's kind of standing out to you? I see something here. We have a border here along the left-hand side. If I inspect that, I can see a little blue border here to help with an alert. And if I go ahead over here and I look there, sure enough, there is a border left. And here's the color, and here's the thickness. So this page is a fantastic example for showing, number one, that style is everywhere on web pages. We don't necessarily know the reason behind the style, except for that one example I'm going to argue where a status of red unverified is just conditioned to say there's an issue here. The rest could be branding for layout purposes or whatever, but we're able in a very quick view to get a nice glimpse as to the types of things that we can tackle inside of a user script. What we would not want to do is veer terribly far off of the style. In fact, as much as we can, we want to continue to use what we see in the style. So the next thing you can notice is we're going to compare this with the version of the page. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah. We're going to get a glimpse here. If I go back to the page, I'm going to toggle. This is the version of the page without the user script, and the one in black header is the one with the user script. So here's something that I don't like that's part of the style, is this white border around here. Furthermore, they have this icon to change the photo. But guess what happens when you press that? It wants you to download an app, and nobody at this practice is using that app, and I don't want this. There are other ways to change the photo, but I don't want to go ahead and see this icon every time I click for the next year. And I don't want to see this white border here. So through style, I'm going to toggle over to the version with the user script running. And keep your eye up here in the upper left-hand corner. So there it is. We've gotten rid of the white border, and we've also gotten rid of the camera icon here. See? And so we've hidden this. And you can see that's the user script up here at the top. You have at the black banner, which we're using to say has the user script running. We have 3 instances of the script running. Now, what was this craziness that I was showing at the bottom here? Well, in the right-hand corner, that was the syntax of the style. So I'm going to kind of go over very briefly the rules of style and how they work inside of a web page. Now, how this is implemented is what they call a cascading style sheet. Now, this is basically, why is it called cascading? Because you can be as specific as you want to what you want to style. If I want to style a specific object, I can nail it. But if I want to select this based on a description saying, okay, I want to look 2 nodes down at my, at one of my descendants, and if that happens to have this particular name to it, which would be an ID or a class, which could be shared across different ones, then I want to be able to style that. So there are 3 places where you can put these styles. So the first one, which is highly discouraged, is going to be on the node itself. I'm going to show that to you now. It's called internal style sheet. So this is going to be inline style. So an inline style is inline to the element, directly on the DOM element. So here is our example I'm going to look at inside of the user script. And you can see it here. So this is kind of, it's used usually in form of a hack. The idea is you don't want to mix your form with your function. You want one to complement the other, but they shouldn't necessarily be in the same place. Why do I say this? Well, if it's in the actual document itself, everybody gets that style. You may not want that to be the case. You may be doing co-branding, for example, or you may be reusing a component. And if that component shows up in a different part of your web page, maybe it wants to be styled differently. But by putting it right down as this inline style, you basically are making it the authority. that style is going to go wherever it is. Nothing can override it. But the notion of cascading style sheet is you could actually override this stuff. So we're going to pop up one level from the element and go onto the web page itself. I'm going to try to take you back to the original version of this page, and we'll see if we can find a version of what an internal style sheet is. The internal style sheet is relatively simple. An internal style sheet is going to be a style tag, much like you saw there was a div, but in this case it's a style tag, and inside of it are going to be these declarations of style, and they usually have to be added into the head of the page. So let's go ahead into the version of the regular web page. I'm going to go down here with the dev tools here, and I'm just going to Control F. And from here, I'm going to look for style, and I'm going to find it. So how many are there? You can see here in the bottom right-hand corner, there are 3 instances of this. And here's the first, right up here. So here's some style that was added in, right? It's a internal style sheet on the page. Let's go to the second one. Here's the second one that's actually coming from me. You remember earlier we were trying to make the actual photo and the border disappear. Well, look at this. So here's an internal style sheet. And this isn't mine. This is another internal style sheet, but it's going to be doing different items here. If I go back to the one that I was doing, hold on. Here's the version with the style sheet. And I can, again, by just going ahead in here, Control F into the document itself, and I'm going to look for style, and I hope I'm going to find it. I don't know if I am. All right, scrolling. Here's the second one. This is the one that our user script is adding. Oh, this is actually this is the main one of our script, and I'm going to show you that a little bit later. So let's see if I can find that other one. Hold on a second. Okay. Awesome. I have found it. Here it is. Got my name on it. You know this is mine. So you can see when I hover around here, I'm kind of getting a flashing lights up here because we're dealing with the banner. And if I open it up, I can see here what we were talking about before, which is the photo container image. And I'm putting a style of none on the border, which is allowing this border up here to disappear. And then I'm also making sure that this photo icon that you remember is not displaying anymore. So I hit display none on that. And that's my definition of the style. This is what they call an internal style sheet. So the best kind of style sheet, which we're not doing here, is going to be an external style sheet. And this is going to be just simply a separate file that's going to have all of these rules in them. And we're going to load that at the same time as the page, but for the sake of keeping a user script kind of simple, and for the sake of being able to directly inside of this file find both where style aspects come up in the style as well as in our JavaScript code, we're keeping these two together. So those are the 3 types of CSS or cascading style sheets. Let's go ahead now and we're going to take a look at the syntax of actually how does this work? How are we able to create a type of style and define it? Let's declare it, right? And see what we got. So here we are back in the JavaScript code. We're going to be basically creating a style element, and we're going to be adding it to what we think is the head of the document. And that's all that's going on here with the call to this guy. So if we need to create a rule, there's different types of selectors. The selector is the first part, and then you have your block of declarations. And the selector is going to specify who it is I want to style inside of the document, meaning which DOM elements. And the declaration block is going to have what kind of changes of style do I want to make to that particular type of matching DOM element. So if we're looking at shorthand, when it comes to CSS, we're going to see this. So we have a hash sign here or a number sign. This is going to indicate it's an ID attribute. You saw before we were dealing with the class attribute inside of the DOM element, but had there been an ID attribute called one-of-a-kind ID, then anything we put in here means that particular DOM element would be styled. Now, if it's a class, we put, instead of a hashtag, we put a dot before it. So one of many class. Every matching DOM element that has a class called one of many class is going to get property value 1 with its value of this, and property value 2 with this other value. And examples of that we've gone over earlier were, let's change the color. So you want to change the color of a particular element, you use the color attribute and you set the value here. You want to change the background color. We saw this with those deep purple banners. Well, you put the background color attribute and then you can pick a color here. And you want maybe your, like in the insurance we looked at, you want it to be bold. You can change the font weight attribute and change that to bold. So this is how you create a rule. On top of having a selector of a class, you can specify what kind of DOM element has that class, and that would go before that dot. And so here, if I have a div DOM element that has a class called class, then whatever rules I put in here are going to satisfy and get changed. Here's a different example where you have maybe you have two different types of things you'd like to style in the exact same way. We're going to describe how to select the first batch, first way to match, and we put a comma here, followed by the second way to match, and then beneath that are going to be your rules here. Now, what happens if you're dealing with an ancestor and a descendant? You're going to say, okay, I'm the parent, and anybody below me who matches this way, I want to style it. So very simple. In that case, you don't finish with just mentioning the selector, first part of the selector. You're going to put a space, and then you're going to follow it by how to describe those descendants beneath you, and then here are your rules for styling them. Now, what happens if you, instead of styling anybody that comes beneath, you want to style specifically children? So my immediate descendant under me in the nesting is my child. If I want to style those children, I need to, instead of putting a space between the first and the second part of the selector, I'm going to put an arrow. Now, most cases, I choose this way of doing it. Why? Especially when you're doing a user script, or even if you're creating your own website from scratch or working on a giant team, someone may come and change the actual HTML and add, say, another node, or take another node out between the first part of your selector, right, and the second part. They may take out this middle bit. And if you were putting the specific my child in there, well, that could change. So conversely, somebody could add something between the parent and the child. They may put anything and nest it between, and then suddenly this other type of selector doesn't work. So I'm going to skip over this type where we're dealing with next sibling here. These are kind of very hacky, and they take a lot longer to perform. I don't recommend you use something like saying, get my, match me and then take my next sibling over. That means in shorthand, you're saying my next sibling isn't isn't classed. So there's no nice way for me to be able to identify by its attributes the sibling that I'm trying to style, in which case you should probably go back and change your HTML. I don't use that very much at all. If I'm desperate and I have no control over the actual document, I might very well do that. So that's the notion of the syntax of CSS. The next thing I want to tell you about, which we're using here, are called template literals. That's just a fancy term for a way of taking a string and doing something a little bit magical with it. So you've probably seen strings like this with a traditional quotation mark, but in some cases you want to do what would be called a template literal. We're going to be using these backtick strings. So these backtick strings, one of the nice properties of them is I can actually continue them on another line, and I could put more stuff in here. And I'm not going to have any problem executing this code except for the fact that this doesn't match, but this should be honored. So this is still getting, this stuff I'm putting down here is getting assigned into here. That is not the case when I instead do it here. So if I make, you can see here I'm already getting a parsing error. So I have an open quote, I don't have a close quote down here. So I think I can add something here, but I really can't. I'm getting errors like crazy. So one of the nice aspects of using this backtick string is that they're called a multi-line string, or I'm going to be turning them officially into what we call the template literal. The template literal is created by inside of my string. I'm going to add a $sign and then open bracket, close bracket, and I'm going to put the name of any variable of my choosing that I've already declared inside of that template literal. And what's going to happen next is going to be magic. When this is added into our JavaScript code, we're going to do a fancy thing called string interpolation. So the string, it will be interpolated between what is here as literal characters and the template literal. The template literal will be doing a nice substitution. So for FBI constant put into this, this guy is going to be substituted here. The other thing you could do inside of a template literal is put any type of expression. I've just put a constant in these cases, but it can be any type of expression understood by JavaScript, and that will be resolved at the time that the string is used. So here, look at this one. We have another template literal, but instead of putting a variable inside, we put a mathematical expression, 3 + 1, and that equals 4. So what's going to happen if I add this guy into my my page like I've done here? By the way, never put console log statements. That's a no-no, but we're going to do it here so you can see. I'm going to render the same page, and we're going to take a look at the console tab of the Chrome DevTools. Let me see if I can pull that up. All right, remember this guy. So here I'm on the console. I'm going to just clear it, and hopefully what we're going to see is we're going to see this. We're going to see these two bits are going to get rendered into the console, and both of them are going to resolve what's inside of here in our two template literals. So let's go back, and I'm going to cross my fingers, and I'm going to refresh the page. And here it is. So right inside the console, we have FBI equals the Federal Bureau of Investigation. If we go back and take a look at here, you'll see that the is added first as just a plain vanilla string. And then after it is string interpolation of this second bit from FBI to say the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, here's the other one. 4 is really, and then we have an expression, 3 + 1, which should equal 4 once it's actually resolved. And sure enough here, it prints out 4 is really 4. So you can use these template literals inside of JavaScript, and I'm using it all over the place when it comes to creating these internal style sheets. Why? Why would I do this? Why wouldn't I just do it some way of putting free floating strings in there like I want? Well, what we're trying to do after we know how to use we know the rules now of CSS, we know the syntax, we know the rules of template literals, but we want to do things cleanly. So what we're going to do here is I don't want free floating strings, because what happens when you change one in one place and not in another? If I'm using this particular aspect of the CSS, I'll show it to you right here. All right. Look at all these. These are all CSS things that I want to reuse. So I have classes in here, I have actual values, and I want to use these in multiple places. Now, if I want to go ahead and see where these are used, this is where we're going to bring up another bit of what best practices are. It's good to know your IDE. And your IDE works in a particular way. To navigate around, there's a slow way and there's a slightly fast way. Every IDE comes with a set of shortcuts, and sometimes shortcuts can be overridden. I'm going to show you some right away. The first one that I'm going to say, which I use quite a bit, is when you want to find all the references to something. So in my case, I'm going to look down at this one down here, which is called find, what is it? Hold on. The empty visit class, this guy here. So I want to know how to see all of these examples in our code. I can do it by just doing a Control F and circling through it, but I want to know how that works. Well, if I go and find my keyboard shortcuts, in this case I'm using VSCode, but you can peek at them anyway. You can search and say, how do I do a find all references? Well, here's the shortcut. It's kind of awkward. You have to hit Shift, you have to hit Alt, and you have to hit F12. Well, guess what? In many cases, your function keys may have been taken over by your laptop and have a special value. For example, mine, watch, I'm going to hit F12. This is where I'm going to bring in a brand new screen for you. Very exciting. It's called the keyboard cam. So let's check that out. So here's my F12. If I press it on my own, I'm not going to get one of these things. I'm going to get the calculator. And it's kind of hard to see here, but there's the calculator icon. So if I really, really, really wanted to do a find all references, I'd have to do Shift Alt F12, but with the function key push. So I'm going to try that for you now. Here's my empty visit class. I'm asking myself, please find me IDE all reference to this. I have to hit the Shift, I have to hit the Alt, and I have to hit the function. You know, good luck with that, but here I go. Shift, function, Alt, and then the F12. I'm pressing it, and watch in the upper left-hand corner, right over, well, it's hard to see, but right up here, we're going to change, the left pane will change in the IDE. There it is. So here are my 3 that I got, again, from hitting this shortcut. I'm able to get myself a nice list of all the references, right, of what's going on. And from here, I can go ahead and click on any of them, and you're going to see why we are using template literals. Here's our template literal. We have a selector, and I'm using this empty visit class. And if I go to the second reference in my list, I see a second case. Can you imagine if instead of this, I just had the free floating string here, which equals this? Watch, I'll show you. This is another trick. Hold on. In your IDE, it works for a lot of them. You can press Control, hover over the actual item, and hit Control enter, and you're going to navigate directly to that item. That's kind of nice. Similarly, when I want to go backwards to where I was just, I can hit Alt and left key. This does not work in every IDE, but it does work in VS Code if you're choosing to do that, which is pretty useful for JavaScript work. So again, Control click takes me directly to what I want, and Alt click backward will take me back one step, or I could go forward one step, backward, forward. So I'm using this in 2 places. I can also hover. And can you imagine if I put the CSS class just as pure strings and I changed it in one place and not everywhere? Well, guess what? Only one of my references to it is going to get updated, and we don't want that. So where else am I actually using this? I'm using this in the JavaScript. And the reason I'm using the template literal and the reason I'm using these constants is because I want anybody who's maintaining this code to be able to see that relationship between these 2 pieces. If this, you've already seen that this file is over 1,000 lines long. You have to make it easy, and you want the IDE to kind of help you out with this. So in this case, my third reference for it is the JavaScript use of it. So let's take a look at that here. Here's my third use of it. So here we are inside of the JavaScript, and I'm literally adding the class here to a DOM element. So in some cases, we're going to be styling right out of the chute with what's already there. And in other cases, we're going to be programmatically needing to add classes into those DOM elements, and that's what we have. The last, and I promise you, the last type of best practice I want to talk about today when it relates to style is going to be composition. So if I'm using things several times, for example, inside of a declaration block of declarations, style declarations, if I'm using something to modify 3 different types of selectors down my sheet, I don't want to repeat the same code 13 times, because when I want to change it for one, I may want to change it for all of them. So this is where composition comes in handy. I'm going to go ahead and show that example to you now, which is this one, which is called Bubble CSS Mint. Look, so what we have here is the empty visit class one. This particular declaration block is composed of yet another template literal, and I can go ahead and see where else this is used, again, by hitting the magical series of key presses, and I'll do that now. And look at all these here. I have a bunch of them here throughout my CSS, and I use it multiple times. If I want to go to the declaration, it's right here. It's going to basically involve 2 items just to make it look this bubble look and feel. And I'm going to use it here, 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 right? Lots of times. Similar, I have another one here called the money class. I don't know if I can find that. Let's see. Oops. All right, here it is, money class. I'm adding it here directly into JavaScript, but if I go back to the declaration, I have it here, and again, through a series of crazy clicks, shift, whatever, it doesn't matter, I'm able to see that here it is. So I'm doing something with the font size, and I'm making it larger. We're going to see this coming up rather soon. But I hope you've kind of got an idea here about not only how style is added, but where it is and what it's used for. In our cases, we're going to be seeing lots of examples where there's something missing in our page, so people who are using it are running into problems, and we want the style to kind of direct them towards what needs to happen, and that's going to happen purely through style. I'm going to show you one real quick that relates to this money class. Here we are inside of the patients who are coming in today, and wait, hold on a second. Here's the version with the without the style. This is the check-in page, and I don't see anything much that I need to do if I'm checking in the person, but there is something really important that we're missing out on, and that's down at the bottom here. Well, this is kind of important. They have a debt of $60. They have an outstanding balance of $65 and a copay of $5. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't see that too easily. So what I want the check-in person to be able to do is to see it more carefully. And indeed, this was happening a lot. The patients would check in or check out, never collect the balance from them. If they owe a copay that day, if it's an exam, never collect the copay. We just weren't seeing this that clearly. So do you remember that little money class thing I showed you before? Well, that's exactly what's going to happen. Once we get the user script working with that style, this is what you see instead. Before and now after. Here it is. So we've styled these amounts. And so doing, it's much easier for a person doing check-in to notice that there is something that needs to be done today as part of their check-in process. Again, without it, you're good luck, you may not see it. And that's all happening with style. I'm going to probably put this presentation on hold for a second part, and we're going to be looking at a little bit more examples of this. But I think you've gotten enough today to know how style can actually complement the structure and perhaps bring you to solve a problem directly for you. And then we've kind of looked at how this shows up on a page if we're talking about style on a web page. And we've shown you how to add it into a user script. Or even if you're creating your own web page from scratch, how is it that I can add style to my page? And what are some options out there for me of things I can do, types of style that I can do? Tune in, folks, because I'm going to have another presentation. We're going to start looking at some of the actual portions of this web app and see how we're able to solve these challenges by style. And we're going to be doing that more throughout the web page. This has been it for today, folks. I hope you had some fun learning a little bit about what style is when it relates to a web page, and understanding better that it's not all adornment. Style can actually serve a purpose. Remember those words of Louis Sullivan, the architect, where you're dealing with style and you want, sure enough, the style should be following the function. So it's not form over function. The form should follow the function. And that's what we're doing here inside of the user script, is to do something very visual and visceral, but it serves a direct purpose. The style we're putting in serves the purpose and intent of the page that we're looking at. That's it for today, folks. I hope you had some fun, and especially with our new exciting keyboard cam. And we'll see you shortly for part 2, and let's dive into some of these great examples of style delivering us these solutions to our problems. Take care. Talk to you next time. Bye.